This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Chapter 2. How Caius Julius Caesar was the first Roman that came into Britain. Now Britain had never been visited by the Romans, and was entirely unknown to them before the time of Caius Julius Caesar, who in the year 693, after the foundation of Rome, but the 60th year, 33, before the incarnation of our Lord, was consul with Lucius Bibulus. While he was making war upon the Germans and the Gauls, who were divided only by the river Rhine, he came into the province of the Morini, whence is the nearest and shortest passage into Britain. Here, having provided about 80 ships of burden and fast-sailing vessels, he sailed over into Britain, where, being first roughly handled in a battle, and then caught in a storm, he lost a considerable part of his fleet, no small number of foot soldiers, and almost all his cavalry. Returning into Gaul, he put his legions into winter quarters, and gave orders for building 600 sail of both sorts. With these he again crossed over early in spring into Britain, but whilst he was marching with the army against the enemy, the ships riding at anchor were caught in a storm, and either dashed one against another, or driven upon the sands and wrecked. 40 of them were lost. The rest were, with much difficulty, repaired. Caesar's cavalry was, at the first encounter, defeated by the Britons, and there Labienus, the tribune, was slain. In the second engagement, with great hazard to his men, he defeated the Britons and put them to flight. Thence he proceeded to the river Thames, where a great multitude of the enemy had posted themselves on the farther side of the river, under the command of Cassibellaunus, and fenced the bank of the river, and almost all the ford under water with sharp stakes. The remains of these are to be seen to this day, apparently about the thickness of a man's thigh, cased with lead, and fixed immovably in the bottom of the river. This being perceived and avoided by the Romans, the barbarians, not able to stand the charge of the legions, hid themselves in the woods, whence they grievously harassed the Romans with repeated sallies. In the meantime, the strong state of the Trinovantes, with their commander Androgeus, surrendered to Caesar, giving him 40 hostages. Many other cities, following their example, made a treaty with the Romans. Guided by them, Caesar at length, after severe fighting, took the town of Cassibellaunus, situated between two marshes, fortified by sheltering woods, and plentifully furnished with all necessaries. After this, Caesar returned from Britain into Gaul, but he had no sooner put his legions into winter quarters than he was suddenly beset and distracted with wars and sudden risings on every side. Chapter 3. How Claudius, the second of the Romans who came into Britain, brought the islands of the Orkneys into subjection to the Roman Empire, and Vespasian, sent by him, reduced the Isle of Wight under the dominion of the Romans. In the year of Rome, 798, or 43 A.D., Claudius, fourth emperor from Augustus, being desirous to approve himself a prince beneficial to the Republic, and eagerly bent upon war and conquest on every side, undertook an expedition into Britain, which, as it appeared, was roused to rebellion by the refusal of the Romans to give up certain deserters. No one before or after Julius Caesar had dared to land upon the island. Claudius crossed over to it, and within a very few days, without any fighting or bloodshed, the greater part of the island was surrendered into his hands. He also added to the Roman Empire the Orkneys, which lie in the ocean beyond Britain, and returning to Rome in the 6th month after his departure, he gave his son the title of Britannicus. This war he concluded in the 4th year of his reign, which is the 46th from the incarnation of our Lord. In which year there came to pass a most grievous famine in Syria, which is recorded in the Acts of the Apostles to have been foretold by the prophet Agabus. Vespasian, who was emperor after Nero, being sent into Britain by the same Claudius, brought also under the Roman dominion the Isle of Wight, which is close to Britain on the south, and is about 30 miles in length from east to west, and 12 from north to south, being 6 miles distant from the southern coast of Britain at the east end, and 3 at the west. Nero, succeeding Claudius in the empire, undertook no wars at all, and therefore, among countless other disasters brought by him upon the Roman state, he almost lost Britain, for in his time 2 most notable towns were there taken and destroyed. Chapter 4. How Lucius, king of Britain, writing to Pope Eleutherus, desired to be made a Christian. In the year of our Lord 156, Marcus Antoninus Verus, Marcus Aurelius, the 14th from Augustus, was made emperor, together with his brother Aurelius Commodus. In their time, whilst the holy Eleutherus presided over the Roman Church, Lucius, king of Britain, sent a letter to him, entreating that by a mandate from him he might be made a Christian. He soon obtained his pious request, and the Britons preserved the faith which they had received, uncorrupted and entire, in peace and tranquillity, until the time of the Emperor Diocletian.